Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here, and I'm so glad to be back. I know I said I would do the Baizhu Math Guide 1, but I may need a little bit more time for that. So instead of doing the Baizhu Math Guide 1 for this week, I'll at least want to do a video on Dehya. I know Dehya is pretty bad right now, but there are some positive points to look at. So I'll talk about that, like basically what I think in terms of how Dehya can eventually become meta without changing her kit. Because let's face it, the chances of her kit changing is not high. Because I'm pretty sure Hoyo has already planned new characters that will synergize with her, so to speak. But without further ado, let me just go quickly talk about it. And I'll talk about her new artifact set, Baizu's A4 passive, and the impact, possible future characters from meta, and just a quick TLDR after that. Okay? So I definitely see potential for Dehya to become meta, just from Baizu's A4 passive and her new artifact, which are the new things that we are seeing in the next version, right? As well as there's potential Fontaine characters that can make her better. Now, I'm not going to go to the extent of talking about Fontaine characters kit, whatever is available now, because anyway, if you guys have listened to, if you watched my videos before, you know that I don't think that anything beyond the next upcoming version, anything later than the next upcoming version is later too subject to change. That's what I think. Okay. So yeah, it's good to know, but don't take too much stock on it. Now I'll talk about some of the possible mechanics that can help Dehya become meta without any changes to a kit. Because like I said, right, it's unlikely. Come on, there's no way Hoyo has not already planned the new mechanics or characters in the next few versions while releasing Dehya in her current state. So imagine you're the game developer company, right? You would have planned an entire roadmap of characters, at least for like the next 4 or 5 versions, at least. And that would mean that they already have a pretty good view on how she will perform in future, not just in the current state. So in other words, I'll say that this is not my usual math analysis, but more of an educated guess on upcoming meta based on my experience and based on the trends so far. With regards to other characters eventually becoming better a few versions down the road. And there's so many, right? I can easily name them later. So yeah, you can call this video a hopium or copium as well. I'm fine. I just want to quickly talk about it so that people stop being so upset about her. I'm not defending Hoyoverse, by the way. I'm just saying that wait and see. Okay? The key thing I want to say here is wait and see. And instead of just blindly waiting, I'll just give you a bit of the insight that I have with regards to what I see for her. Okay? Just purely based on my experience and my opinion. Alright, let's talk about her new artifact set. 2-piece, very straightforward. HP plus 20%. 4-piece is the one where you get an E and Q 10% bonus. Whenever the equipping character takes damage, even if it's off field, you get 80% of this effect, which is 8% for 5 seconds. Yeah, it used to be 8 seconds, recently it got changed to 5 seconds, so that's enough. But I'll talk about that later. So you can have up to 5 stats, which means that it's 5 times 8%, 40% plus 10% base is 50%. So it's very obvious that this is an artifact set tailor-made for Dehya, right? Equipping character takes damage and it works even when you're off field, which is exactly how her damage mitigation passive works. Because whatever active character taking damage in her E field, she will slowly take damage over the next 10 seconds while off field. So she will get this boost. Right? Now, that being said though, her biggest hurdle is still her ER. Because of the high ER demand that she has, it can make this set only marginally better than 4 Emblem. Especially if you don't have a C2, C4, C6, because those are the ones where her ER can be reduced. C2 because of the extended duration, meaning more particles on her E. C4, which is very obvious, right? I mean, if you've seen my previous math guide, C4 has such a huge impact on her energy. And as for C6, that's obvious, right? Because of the synergy between C4 and C6. Now, luckily, she's on the standard banner, so it's at least possible to get those constellations when you lose 50-50. So a bit of consolation there. So yeah, I'll talk about this. I've already talked about this. The 4-piece effect is basically 50% total at max stats. And it's very, very easy for Dehya to hit the max. Now, I know the recent change dropping from 8 seconds to 5 seconds is nerf to the artifact set itself, for sure. But I can tell you it has no real impact to Dehya if you think about it, because her passive splits damage over 10 seconds. So this change basically makes it more difficult for characters other than Dehya to proc it reliably. So it kind of makes this artifact a little less flexible. But I can kind of understand why this change has to be done, because before this change, this artifact actually has the potential to be really broken for Yelan. Just think about it. If it was 8 seconds, it's actually very easy for Yelan to hit this. Like, you just need a few mobs hitting Yelan and she'll easily hit this condition. And she's already so broken right now, by the way. Yelan is like, if someone asks me, without thinking, who is the best character in Genshin Impact in terms of meta and also design, it will be Yelan. Okay? Simple as that. So that's why I say I kind of understand why it has to be nerfed from 8 seconds to 5 seconds. It's not just Yelan. The 8-second iteration actually has a high potential of being good on many characters, especially his skilling ones, because it's so easy to achieve the 5 stats. Especially versus mobs. Right? If a whole bunch of mobs hitting you, easily trigger this. And I can tell you, even the 5 seconds still has the same potential, but it's a lot more strict on the condition. Right? You really need a lot of enemies hitting you. Need a crowded enemy scenario to hit this. Like, you know, those type of the abyss floors with like 16 enemies in 3 waves or stuff like that. So TLDR, the new artifact set changes 8 seconds to 5 seconds is actually better for Dehya in the picture because it doesn't affect her. But it does make this artifact set more niche for Dehya, or when the meta shifts into interactions based on taking damage. Okay? So let's talk about Baizhu's A4 passive. Baizhu's A4 basically gives you a HP scaling buff, HP scaling on Baizhu's HP to Dendro reactions every time his Q shield triggers a heal. So ideally, if you want to max damage bonus, you want 50k HP. As of now, I cannot find information on whether this works if your active character is at full HP. So, i.e. what does this mean? Does the prop buff prop based on overflow healing? If you don't know what is overflow healing, you can check out 4-Place Ocean Heal Clamp's description. It specifically states that it includes overflow healing for its effect. But Baizhu's A4 passive does not specify that. So what this means is that if it does not include overflow healing, Dehya actually provides better synergy for Baizhu's A4 to have 100% uptime, at least during her Q on field time, because you know Baizhu's A4 is based on his Q or his similar shields, and the Q effect is specific to the active character. The heal of the shield is from on the active character. Well, I guess it's not just her on-field time, but also her E recast time. But not the initial cast, because you need the initial cast in order to trigger that whole damage mitigation thingy. Yeah. Now, given the buff, last 6 seconds, this is we are talking about Baizhu's A4 passive here. It may be feasible to get 100% uptime even without Dehya and even without overflow healing, but it can become very conditional. Wait, sorry, hang on. It's a little off. Okay, it can become very conditional because obviously bloom reactions will help you to fulfill this condition because all the self damage coming from bloom reactions, right? Be it bloom, hyper bloom, or burgeon. Baizhu shield, if you think about it, right? If you are going for max damage bonus on it, 50k HP, the shield may actually offset all your self damage. It may be actually difficult to take damage in that 6 seconds, unless you get hit by opponent. Then I think it's easier, or maybe you get more hit by a hard hit or more than one opponent, stuff like that. So it actually remains to be seen whether bloom teams can proc it reliably. Okay, like I think it takes 2 to 3 hits to at least 2 to 3 of the bloom self damage to offset the Baizhu shield, but I may be wrong. Let's see how that works out eventually, and I'll probably try to do some math on it too when it comes to the Baizhu math series. But imagine if you have both Thoma and Baizhu in the team, because we're talking about a scenario where you don't use Dehya. You see how to best optimize Baizhu's A4 passive. Okay, I think it's even harder to plot this buff for 100% of the time when you have both Thoma and Baizhu in the team who are both providing shields. I know people are already saying, oh, it's so good. Thoma and Baizhu, they cover each other in terms of the shield, right? They complement each other. both of them having a weaker shield coming together to become a stronger shield, although it doesn't stack. Okay, shields do not stack. At least we can talk about like in terms of the duration, maybe it's staggered. It's not so bad. But you gotta realize that it kind of counteracts against his A4 passive. So if you don't take damage, you don't heal you won't be able to heal. Assuming the A4 passive does not include overflow healing, then you can't trigger the A4 passive. And then you have a scenario where I get the buff, but maybe there's a gap in between here and there. Like maybe the first second, 6 seconds you get the buff, the next 3-4 seconds you don't get it, and then maybe you get it again, stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's gonna be quite hard to proc it 100% with both Toma and Baizhu in the team. Although initially it sounded really good, right, for both of them to be together. Well, but at the very least, Bloom's self-damage concept means that Baizhu's A4 passive is not niche to the extent of being only good with Dehya. But Dehya can definitely make it 100% uptime during her on-field time, which is basically her Q and her E recast. And like I said, you need the E initial recast because before you can trigger the damage mitigation. Although technically speaking, you may end up taking damage from enemies anyway, and it wouldn't be an issue. At least for the first E initial cast. But what I want to say is that this particular interaction, how the whole A4 passive works, does give you a preview into how future characters, especially Fontaine characters, can have more synergy with Dehya if you think about it. Right? So let's talk about the future characters, or even maybe the new meta. So it's actually very straightforward, okay? If we use Baizhu's A4 passive as an example, future characters may have interactions like buffs, damage instances, elemental application, etc., triggering based on either heals or taking damage. Now, I know that there's already some stuff now that is based on heals, but it's not predominantly in the meta per se. What I'm trying to talk about here is like you get more and more of such interactions to the extent that it becomes meta. That's what I'm trying to say here. Okay? So if you have 2 or 3 characters other than Dehya having such interactions, effectively, if you think about it, Dehya instantly provides you synergy with all 3. And she will enable 100% uptime on these interactions, which would then bring her into the meta per se. Right? Especially if it's taking damage even for off-field characters. I mean, for Baizhu, it's not so bad. At least it's just an active character. If Baizhu works on the if the Baizhu's shield heals the nearby party members, it works on off-field characters. I can tell you this buff is gonna be there even when Dehya is off-field. So imagine if something like that happens for new characters who have this type of kit where they can trigger any of these things based on either taking damage or heal. Now, obviously, you can say that Bloom reactions can enable such interactions too. I don't need Dehya's damage mitigation passive. And I can agree with you, because you gotta realize that they also can't make these interactions too niche, such that only Dehya enables them with 100% uptime. Because if they do that, then it's a little too restrictive. And again, reminder that Baizhu's shield may offset your Bloom self damage and cause its A4 passive to not be 100% uptime without Dehya. I don't know this yet, and I have not been able to find any information regarding this. If you guys did find information to show otherwise, please let me know. Like, for example, about whether it includes overflow healing. It's a A4 passive. But I gotta say that this new meta direction, if it does happen, also makes the whole self-damage concept from Bloom reactions better, right? Because all of a sudden, the self-damage becomes a good thing. Instead of now where it's something that you need to manage. While simultaneously helping to keep things fresh in Genshin, because now you have new interactions instead of always like triggering based on normal attacks. Yelan Series. Now you have a new mechanic where it's based on taking damage or healing. So I think that it's a good direction to go to. It's something new. Because it's very straightforward, right? In Azuma, they focus on energy recharge. In Sumeru, you have new reactions. Okay. So when it comes to Fontaine, what do they need? They need something new again, right? And I do think that these interactions are going to be like the new stuff for Fontaine, especially since Fontaine is Hydro. Maybe the Hydro icon will have something similar to that. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, this is what I believe. I believe that when we do get more characters from Fontaine, these characters are going to make such interactions be the new meta. To me, all I see is they have being like a precursory view into it. Okay, a cursory glance into it. Now, right now, One thing I want to talk about is like a design principle kind of thing. Right now, there are two very strong and independent hydro characters, Yelan and Xingqiu, which if you think about it, kind of restricts Hoyo in new character design, right? I mean, just think about how many people are complaining about Yelan and Xingqiu not working on a new pyro character like Dehya. So it is in Hoyo's best interest to provide new hydro characters. They are on par or almost on par with Yelan and Xingqiu, but not any independent. So that they keep things fresh, okay? They keep you pulling for the new characters and they slowly shift the meta. And this is something that Hoyoverse is really, really good at. I have not used banner in a long time, by the way. If you guys realize, the new meta, there's a lot more comms right now that do not use banner, and they are still meta. That is what Hoyo has been indirectly doing for the last few versions. Okay, so to be honest, right, for them to do something like this, it's actually very simple. They just need to make the new hydro character proc based on the interactions above, like taking damage or healing, or even just Q damage or E damage, etc. So doing it based on the interaction above will just make it easier balance-wise. And they have so many versions to come, right? There's still three or four more continents to come. They have tons of opportunity to introduce stuff like this. It will happen. We just don't know when it will happen, right? But I do believe that Fontaine will definitely give us new interactions and new meta. Otherwise, the game just becomes still. Then they need to keep people playing. Alright? So TLDR, basically, I believe what we see in 3.6 now, i.e. the Baizhu A4 passive and the new Dehya artifact, is like a hint on what's coming next in the new meta. We will see Dehya at the forefront of new meta as like an enabler, not necessarily like damage, but maybe an enabler. So if you just jump to TLDR, I highly recommend that you go to the previous section where I talk about future characters of meta section for details on these interactions, okay? Especially for Fontaine. So or Hoyoverse can simply make new characters provide hydro proc based on Q damage. That will also improve Dehya. Although that's not the interaction per se. Now, more importantly though, while I'm fairly confident the meta will shift as such, this is still speculation per se. So if I have to pick character, I would still recommend to wait till Dehya becomes meta to really invest in her. But I don't think she will get feature banner because she's on the standard banner, right? Sorry, this got caught off guard later. But then again, Kejin did get a feature banner, so it's hard to say. Although that was still very early in the early stages of Genshin, so it may not happen again. But regardless, if you like her and you already have her, then enjoy her E and Q in over for now. Because I know she's not that great in terms of like the more demanding content, but in terms of overall, she's perfectly fine. Especially, I'm actually enjoying her in a Nahida Raiden Yae Dehya comp. Because there's so many E procs based on enemy taking damage. Just hit them once and they receive so many E damage. It makes things easy, very easy. Now, lastly, characters like Kokomi, Ayato, and Toma are very good examples of how characters can become meta a few versions down the road. Right? I mean, Kokomi wasn't that bad on launch, but she definitely became better in the future versions, right? Same likewise for Ayato. He was honestly mid on launch, but now with the introduction of Sumeru reactions, specifically Virgin, or in fact Bloom reactions, he finds himself having like a very good spot in the meta comps. And then you have Toma. Very, very obvious that he's one of the best Virgin proc, right? But before Sumeru, Toma was just horrible. Let's be honest, Toma was just bad. So, I mean, these characters are all very good examples of how a character can become meta a few versions down the road without any changes to their kit. Because I'm fairly confident that Dehya is not going to get changed to a kit. I mean, if Shideki gets buff in her kit, I mean, I'll be happy too. But as a realist or a cynical person, I'll say, or a skeptical person, I'll say it's unlikely, to be honest. Okay, so anyway, that's what I think. These are my 2 cents with regards to Dehya and the whole current situation regarding her, as well as a possible future. And yeah, I gotta say, my head is giddy after inhaling so much opium. After I finished typing this whole thing, I was like, yeah, there may be a little bit too much opium here. But yeah, I mean, based on the experience so far in terms of playing Genshin for the past 2 to 3 years, I do see large potential for Dehya. Okay, so anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I hope this video has been entertaining, at least in the sense of the insights that I'm trying to share. And let's see if Dehya gradually becomes better in future without any changes to it. Alright, thanks everyone for watching. Bye. Alright, if you like the video, remember to subscribe, and remember to like the video and click subscribe for more. Bye.